Hello everyone and welcome to Mineral Resources Park for West Coast Eagles pre-season training 2023. This broadcast is coming to you from the lands of the traditional owners, the Wadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and we pay our respect. This broadcast is also being brought to you by Eagles Media and thanks to our co-majors, Hungry Jacks and Lendy. Well, Eagles fans, it's a big week ahead. Our season launch this coming Thursday, followed by our final pre-season hit-out against the Adelaide Crows. And we're just 3 weeks away from round one versus North Melbourne at Marvel Stadium. I'm Tyson Beattie and I'm joined by Premiership defender Will Schofield and inaugural club captain Ross Glendenning. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hello mate, how are you?
I'm good, but firstly, Will, to you. You called that game against Port Adelaide last Friday night on KO and it was a 8-point victory to the Eagles. Some good signs. What did you make of the game in the pre-season so far?
It was some really good signs. I enjoyed what I saw. Some of the younger players. It's always interesting with pre-season. You know, what do you get out of it? You know, is it the boys won on the weekend, which is great. But I would say it's less about wins and losses and the score, and it's more about how you play and moments. So, you know, you think about just little moments that happen. I thought Jayden Hunt was very good. If you speak about new players, you know, Jayden Hunt was exceptional. Elijah Hewitt had just a couple of little moments. You know, he wasn't on the ground for 100 minutes, didn't have 35 touches, but just to see little moments of excitement, that's what the coaches will be looking for, I think, and even teammates as well, Roscoe. I mean, you'd know about that. You know, it's not all about having your best game, but can you show that you got what it takes?
I think Scully and Tice, the main thing that I think they'll take out of it is that Port come over, they're pretty big. They're pretty quick and they're pretty physical, and they sort of control the game for most of it. But then the pockets when we played well, I thought we played well. We withstood a lot of their pressure and then got the ball into some clearances and then used the ball quite well. And those players you mentioned, along with, we had a forward line at one stage with one tall and Oscar and 6 smalls. So those sorts of things are going to be intriguing. But I thought the best part was that our fitness level withstood the pressure that Port brought, and then we're able to find some legs and a bit of quality use of ball under the pressure moments late in quarters. So sustaining that, what the numbers showed coming back from pre-season, I think showed that we are at a good level of fitness.
Well, it's great to have you both here from an experience point of view, adding your knowledge and wisdom as we look at this special broadcast of a Monday skills session here at Mineral Resources Park. We've never actually done anything like this before. We're actually in the studios here at club headquarters, but we do have another member of our communications team, Boundary Side, former West Coast Eagles AFLW player. Kate Orme is down there. Orme, how's it looking, Boundary Side?
Thanks, Tyson. It's great to be down here on Oval 1. Conditions are pretty nice for a skills session. It's 27 degrees down here with a little bit of an easterly breeze. As you can see behind me, the boys are broken up into a couple of groups, some doing some running and some out here doing some handballs. Today's just a light skills session for the players, having played Friday against Port Adelaide. They won that game 84 to 76. And I'll be joined later on the track by Gavin Bell, the GM of footy, then by Adam Simpson, the senior coach, and then we'll have a little chat with Oscar Allen. So you'll hear from me again soon, and back to you, Tyson.
Thanks, Kate. We'll get another update from you later. Well, we're 3 weeks out from round one, switching to season mode now with a Friday game being and another one on the cards. What do you expect from a session like this, guys?
Well, after Friday, you are a couple of days removed. So, you know, a Saturday or a Sunday game, Monday is very much recovery based. But because we're a couple of days out, I think there'll be some, light skills. They might even work on some ball movement stuff, a bit of touch.
Scotty, as you touched on before we started, you can see some players have the boots on, some with runners. Andrew Gaff is one there that definitely doesn't like to stray too far from the footy boots.
Well, it's got a good pick-up too, and that's exactly right. That can change, but Gaffy, I thought, of a senior player, just quickly referring back to Friday, ran really well. I mean, he's dropped a little bit of weight, not that he had to, but I think those of that age are realising it's going to be a super running style of game this season, more than it ever has, Scotty.
If we talk about players that it's going to suit this fast slingshot type game, which it's been speaking about all over across the AFL. I saw Chris Scott speaking about it this morning. Every team's going to have a go mode, a fast mode. At all costs, play on. No marks. Marks are almost, it's like the whistle don't go. Just go and play on and make it up. And West Coast did it against Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide did it against West Coast as well. But one particular player that I think it'll really suit, and he was, I think, best on ground, was Liam Ryan. He'll be able to get up the ground, he'll be able to turn his player inside out, he'll be able to get back the other way, get behind them. This is the exact way he plays his footy. The high frantic pace, the in and out nature, and he looks fit, like really fit, which is great.
Good spotting. And I think the other fella who I think has impressed everyone, which is a really positive sign, is Elliot Yeo. Just his ability to surge, go hold up in tackles or break tackles, get forward and then use the ball so very well, whether off half-back or just driving through the middle. So, and look at that group of players there, some of the younger boys. Jakey Waterman came on for a quarter, and then he's going to be that sort of player that's going to be required throughout the season to come in and play a taller forward or that running forward like a Cripper, just to try and make some space for when Jack Darling comes back in to support Oscar Allen down forward.
The forward mix is going to be the interesting one for mine at West Coast this year. If you can get Darling and Oscar Allen in the same forward line, who are the four on the field and another that support him? Liam Ryan is a lock. Jamie Cripps is a lock. He's one of the first picked every week because of the role he plays in the side. But there's a couple of spots up for grabs in that forward line. I know Jack Petruccelli spent some time through the midfield this pre-season, but is a guy like Noah Long the guy to step up and jump into that? What does that mix look like in front of the footy? Because you can have all the fitness you like, but you got to kick the goals. And as a backman, that hurts me to say, Roscoe, that very much a goal-kicking reliant game this one.
I love the way you revert back to that. You're right.
Sorry, boys, just look at those pictures with the running groups. You can see 4 of them go at a time. Just talk us through that, Scully. Is that on a Monday? Are they likely to... You don't want to be in Gaffey's group, do you?
Mate, I'll tell you what, I saw... Well, they're not going very fast. That's encouraging. Usually when you got them lined up against the goalposts like that reminds me of like proper pre-season running.
That's what I was thinking.
And so I was looking at that with fear in my eyes. I've been really enjoying the last couple of years, not hearing Warren Kofed's whistle blow as we go. But it looks like, this is recovery speed. They'll be getting the legs going. They want to, after a game, you want to flush your legs out. You want to get them going again.
Good to see Zane True out there too in that first group who... obviously coming back after the tragedy with his mother and just getting his head around the footy. I saw young Rhett Bazzo this morning. So it's just good signs in that area. Scurry I think you'd appreciate. Mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those two boys have been through some of the hardest stuff that you'll go through as a person in life. So one great thing about a footy club is right here. You get to get look at the
All
height.
pretty much injured other than Jamo from last year.
Yep. That's right. It's good to see boys getting back out there, and these are some little drills we'll be doing here. This is a race, so that was a handball race. This looks like you might do 10, 20 strides up and down, get the legs going, and these guys will go into skills after this, which should be good to see.
Greg Clark in that first pick 2 guys with Gaffey, I thought he built his game really well, playing off a wing, gives you a bit of grunt, gives you a bit of size, and when it got hot in the contest, particularly through the second and third quarter, Clarkey is one of the blokes that can reciprocate. When Port came at us, he gave a bit back. So I think there's a role at different stages for Greg Clark.
Yeah, Greg Clark, Jai Cully.
Yes.
There's probably a couple more that are still trying to find exactly West. Like, where do they fit in an AFL side? Like, none of those guys have had great experience at AFL level. They all look like they can play, but where do you play them? They're behind Dom Sheed, Shuey, that sort of stuff. Where do you put them?
Scott, we just want to run through the fixtures now. So you have a look at the Eagles' schedule for season 2023, and look, it's a reasonable start. You got 3 of the first 4 games at Optus Stadium and taking on North Melbourne, who had the wooden spoon last year. So that's not a bad opening month for West Coast.
No, it's not. Look, I think I'm a bit more removed from the club than you two maybe are, so I can speak to a bit how I think these are going to play out. I think West Coast will beat North Melbourne and GWS and start the season really well. You then play crosstown rivals in Fremantle, which is always a difficult game no matter how they're going. But Fremantle, by all regards, are having a great pre-season. Looked really good last year. They missed the top 4 by a kick in the Collingwood-Carlton game. So that's going to be a really difficult game for the footy club. Then Melbourne, Geelong, Port Adelaide. That's going to be a really tough stretch of games that I think if you can win one of those games, it'd be really positive for the footy club. And you could be sitting 3-3 after 6, 4-2 would be a really big, great result. I've kind of come out publicly and said that I think the Geelong game in round 5 put it this way, you'd rather be playing Geelong in Adelaide and not Geelong in Geelong.
Yeah,
Hasn't been a great record the last 25 years down in Geelong, I wouldn't have thought.
No.
So, I mean, Geelong defending premiers, great side, but you're not going to be at home, and neither are West Coast. So I look at the Geelong game and think, can West Coast challenge Geelong?
Neutral ground. I'm with you, Scully. I think those early games, not taken for granted, but Freo's going to be the test. Melbourne will charge back. Grundy and Gawn are going to be a wonderful combination through the middle of the ground and going forward dangerously. And we've seen a bit of Port, so it's a good start, and it's a very achievable start to get 3 and 5 thereabouts.
It's also difficult to look at schedules, and you're comparing to last year, right? You're saying, well, Melbourne were a good side last year, and so were Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide built, but you don't know until you get into the year. You can make every prediction you like and who's going to win here, but in the end, it's all guesses. Everyone's fit. Everyone thinks they're a chance at the premiership this time of year as well. So I think positively, the list looks really fit. As we said before, those 4 guys there, Petruccelli missed some time last year. Oscar Allen didn't play a game, and Dom Sheed played 1 game. So that group just specifically right there, that they come in and play a real role for the West Coast Eagles.
You made a bit of a headline with the way you called the goal of Elijah Hewitt last Friday night. You were very impressed with Hewitt's snap. Look, he only came on for a quarter, but pretty impressive effort.
Yeah, look, I was had a good laugh with Mark Reddings, who was play-by-play calling that game this morning. We spoke about it, and look, as a special comments guy, right, very special comments by me in that game.
Extremely.
You're meant to give the play-by-play commentator some space to let him speak. And I was watching Elijah at that stoppage, because the stoppage before I'd sort of mentioned him on the course, said watch for Elijah Hewitt, he's up and coming, early draftee, watch the yellow boot. So I was focused on him, and I watched the way he moved. He hit a pocket of space that was maybe 1 metre by 1 metre. He hit it exactly the right timing. He was clean. He sort of shrugged the tackle, snapped, and my reaction was, wow. and I said that, and it was natural. I wasn't trying to do anything other than just watching him, and that's what I mean about moments. About that's a 5-second piece of play. In a game of footy, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but for a young player like that, to me, it just says that if he was put into a game, he's ready. The fact that he only played in the last quarter says he's not in the round 1 team at the moment, because they would have played their strongest side in that first half. But moments like that can bump you up the list very quickly, which is why it's an exciting time.
Quick comment on both of you of the man who was just running in the middle in that last shot, who I think you were pretty complimentary, Will, during the call as well, was Jayden Hunt, the recruit for West Coast. 27 years old, 187 centimetres, 114 games for Melbourne, missed out on the 21 flag. What does he bring to the side, Roscoe?
Well, he brings what we need more of, and that's that pace and the preparedness to take the game on from half back, picking up his bag from the airport. I think he brings, clearly he's played enough games, he's old enough, he understands, he's adjusting to how we want him to play, how the coaches want him to play, whether it's half back or wing. He's competitive, he's got pace, just needs to make sure when he gets the footy he uses it as well as he can. There's perhaps a little question mark on disposal. That's not being critical, but if he's going to get it, he's got to use it really well and make the effort to get the ball effective when he pushes it forward.
I've only seen him 1 game for West Coast, which was on the weekend, and I think externally he's seen as a running, gunning type, half-back flanker, takes the game on, which I saw a bit of, but what I was actually impressed with was the way he defended. He was getting some of the better players down there. I think that's important to remember, that no matter how well you can use the footy or run, or I remember Lewis Jetta, a teammate of mine, one of the best line breakers the game's seen, to be honest. Nice to talk about him right up there as the best players I've ever played with. But he could defend when he needed to. He could defend, and that was important. So Jayden Hunt looked like, from what I saw, he could defend. So that was the most exciting part for me, which might sound weird. Most people, like his run, like his bounce, like his disposal, but I think that was good for West Coast.
He did lose, I must say, well said Scully. He did lose at one stage Willie Rioli out the back because he got sucked to the footy. I think Willie's first goal, and so you're right, but he did adjust very quickly from that. So
I called this in the game, Junior. He's the sort of guy that people look and say, oh, well, he's out the back, he's got no man, he must be cheating as a forward. That's what you want to do as forwards.
Exactly.
So that's why it's a big loss for West Coast Junior Rioli, but it was good to see him kick a couple
More of a
goals.
general comment on the idea of free agency and acquiring someone as experienced as a Jayden Hunt. you know, if you look at a few years ago, we were able to bring in someone like Jack Redden as well, what he brought to the club eventually in 2016 or 17 when he crossed over. And you're not originally from Western Australia. You played in Melbourne, Roscoe. How hard is it to nab that free agent, that sort of that player that's in the sweet spot who's not originally from WA?
I think it's difficult, and it is a list. If you look at West Coast list profile, that there is a bit of a gap there between at those ages, sort of 24 through 28. That's why West Coast are keen to add players like that. The reason why it's hard is because at that stage of your career, you're either a very good player and settled and getting looked after contract-wise, or you're not playing because you're no good. Yeah. So to get a quality player like Jayden Hunt, he looks like it. That's why it's difficult, because usually guys like that, clubs know they're valuable, and so you have to pay overs for them if you want to get them.
That's the answer. Well done.
One of the guys that is always a feature on pre-season, as he has for several years, Shannon Hurn. Guys, Bunga, how good does he look? He looks as he has for the last 18 pre-seasons.
He's come back in even better, Nick, honestly. So rounding those sheep up back on the farm in South Australia is the best pre-season he ever has. But he doesn't lose. The greatest thing he has is his poise under pressure, Scully, and his ability to find the place to be. But on top of that, as you'll also, I think, give a tick to, his ability to organise the blokes around him.
Yeah.
Just to go, hey, left, right, forward, back, you, and just get the structure around him right.
Yes.
And he plays selflessly.
Yeah, he does. I mean, he was, as a young guy, he was the quarterback type setup of the ball. He's developed and evolved into a really solid defender, always has been. Can use the footy as well as he always has, but he's just a consistent person. He's consistent on the footy field, he's consistent off it. Had a bit of a chat to him after the practice match. He was up on the balcony, he'd been put on ice, look after the old boys. He did say, look, there has been quite a bit of feedback about...
the arrival.
Well...
For the intra-club.
His outfit.
Yes.
The club. And maybe perhaps the lack of. He's had quite a bit of feedback on his body and his...
Was any of that his clothing, or did he borrow all of it?
I believe it was out of his wardrobe, which doesn't surprise me. He's a bit of a rogue operator, Bunga. But I'll tell you what, there was some tongues wagging, apparently.
So it was a cracking outfit.
And when I say apparently, I mean my tongue was wagging.
Well, we see those shots here from the higher level camera that we have at Mineral Resources Park. A couple of groups going there. Now some general lane kicking getting underway.
They ease into it. Like I said, this is Monday. How are you feeling after, we're 3 days out from a game? You feel fine, as long as you didn't get any big knocks or you tweak your ankle or something like that. You feel fine, but you do feel like you need to get going. Yep. So that's why we see the strides, the really slow kicks. They'll do, like lane kicking, which you see at every level of junior footy. They just do it to get the body going, because you don't want to go from 0 to 100. That's when you start getting injured. That's when you start to feel poor. But I'm seeing a lot of footy boots out there today, and like I said, that's not joking around. Basically, if you got runners on, it means you've got a really light sesh coming up. But you can see Elliot Yohe's boots on, Jeremy McGovern, Shannon Hurn's got runners on, no surprise. Nick Nananui has boots on here. So that's a way to tell who's about to really have a crack here, which will be good to see.
But for juniors watching this, Roscoe, I mean, yes. The simplicity of these lane drills, all that sort of stuff, no matter what level you're at, you're always practicing your skills.
And the vision there, as Scully said, why does it doesn't change? Because you've still got to nail these kicks over 30, 35, 40 and get that right, your action right. There's still coaches going around to some players just trying to adjust their style of kicking, that sort of thing, because it's ongoing.
If you remember Darren Glass, great captain of this footy club, he used to take this right here incredibly seriously, because think about the way he used to play. He wasn't a skillful player in terms of, he wasn't lacing people out 60 metres down the ground. He was a distributor. Yeah. But he used to win a lot of 1-1, so he used to have the ball in his hands a lot. This kick right here, a 20-metre kick, he had to hit it every time. If he ever missed it, it's a goal. It's
over his head.
Yeah, correct. So I remember I used to kick a lot with Glassy, and he was super critical of Mike. If I ever missed, he'd be filthy. One miss, and it really taught me about the simple things in footy. You've got a stationary body, you got a 1-by-1, you got to hit. Can you hit it? It might seem simple, but if you're missing these kicks consistently, when you get into a game, that's when trouble arises. You know,
And
that's
as a
what the
backman,
greats do.
Scully, I know you go back to it, but I'm with you entirely, is that miss kick from the back half to your teammate, if it misses, it's back over your head for a goal invariably. The forward has a shot, gets a point, there's still a score, but there's a relief there. As a backman, often you get penalised pretty severely.
The Lewis Jetta 60-metre bullet through the middle of the ground, right?
Yep.
As a player, you see that kick and you're like, well, this could turn over, and you're ready. A 20-metre kick across the ground that gets hit 9 out of 10 times, you're not ready for a turnover. That's why the basic skill errors really hurt you, because no one's ready for it. And that's why it's important to do it.
One of the best kicks in the team, guys, Elliot Yeo, switching between halfback, midfield. What did you make of his game the other night, and do you expect to see a lot of him in the back line this season?
Yeah, I do. Look, I don't know how. From what I've seen, it looks like Elliot will be swapped in tandem with a Jinbi and a Shuey. That's from what I've picked up from just watching main training sessions. Two of those guys for that triangle weren't playing on the weekend, so I think we probably saw a fair bit more of Elliot in the midfield than perhaps you will in regular season games, but did see him. Interestingly, Port Adelaide were dragging him deep. They were dragging him to those deeper defenders. So if you're a Port Adelaide or someone like that, Roscoe, and you see an Elliot Yeo, put him deeper, right? You don't want him high, let him to do what he wants. So that'll be interesting for West Coast. Can they manipulate a forward line to put an Elliot Yeo or a resting mid high? That's what West Coast will want. What opposition will want, if they see a midfielder, let's get him back to the goal square and expose him.
We also did is we moved Tim Kelly forward a bit. A couple of times he was playing out of the square, so he's a very dangerous player to have forward. If you're an opposition backman and Tim Kelly comes to the square, you're going, oh, we've got some trouble here. If you've got Liam Ryan around there as well. So there's some things you can move and manipulate, which allows then others to come in the middle of the ground, like a Jinbi if he's going to be up for it. Noah Long, I mean, he did some, I mean, he's not tall, but by gee, he knows where to go. He gets there quickly and he's pretty neat. So there's some back players coming through, Scully, that I think can fill and keep pressure on those senior players. But I like Yeo.
This man here, Dom Sheed. So one game last year he played in 2022. He will be incredibly important. He's in that age bracket that I spoke about, that 24 to 28. He's got to be a real leader. He's that leader that's in the middle of the senior leaders, the captain, the vice captains, and the young guys. He's the connector. And you know, in my time in footy, Roscoe, I'm sure you're the same. I found them the most important guys. How do you connect the group? You're always going to have senior leaders. You're always going to have great leaders, in my opinion. I haven't had too many guys leading me that I thought, geez, he's not a leader. Probably no one. And young guys, you're always going to have that talent coming through. But the guys in the middle, how can you connect everybody? That, for mine, is probably the most important part of a footy club.
So there's a responsibility or a bridge for those guys to play between the older. That's an interesting comment.
And Tyson, I think, and Scully, I think you'll agree, some players it takes a while, and Dommy's a fairly quiet bloke, just naturally, but now when he speaks, people listen because he's had the experience, he feels more confident.
Yep.
He's played a number of different roles, but I think also, to your point, Scully, here's a bit of push and shove at training. There's his understanding of his game. And he's running, I've watched him a fair bit over pre-season, he's running as well as he ever has, particularly the 40 to 50 metre runs to get to position, either to get defensively or go forward and be available. So just that sneaky in space.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, probably see a lot of that as the season goes on. With the fast turnover footy and the fast play from the back line, you're going to have to get from one side of the ground to the other quickly. Ruben Jinbi, he caught my eye when I was down at training a couple of weeks ago with those specific runs there. You know, they train them, and they may do some say or not. They're diagonal runs. It's from like the back flank, and you get all the way across the other side on a diagonal and a forward flank. That's to gut run your opponent. That's what you do the fitness work in November, in December, in January for. Because when we get to where we are now, as you can see, Monday is a recovery. Monday is a recoup. You know, recharge the batteries. You get a bit of work done on a Wednesday, but realistically, you're just going from game to game and you're making sure your body's in good enough shape. The core part of the fitness work, that's been done. They're not doing any fitness work. They're not doing 200s at the end of this session. They're not doing 6 1Kers. That's been done. What they're trying to do is make sure next week, so Friday or Thursday, this game coming up?
Friday afternoon.
They want to make sure Friday they're ready to go, and that's where you get your work in. You get your work in the 15Ks that you run in the game. So This stuff now, as we watch Tommy Barrass and Nick Natanui head off the ground, I think that's all above board. They will have done this first part of the session, because now it looks like they're getting into the skills component with Daniel Pratt taking on the back line. So, yeah, perfect.
But he'd be excited. He ran before the games go. You probably saw that.
I
He
did.
was running. They're just, I think, just being cautious, because you want him to be available at 100%.
So what they're doing here, this is line breakdowns. So that is the back line group as we swap to the midfield group here. They'll be in their lines and they'll be working on craft specific to their lines. So the mids might be going through some stoppage work, potentially some working together, some key patterns. The back line look like they're doing a kicking drill, switching the ball in and out of the back line.
Well, we've got a guest on the broadcast now. Let's get down to Kate Orme, who has Oscar Allen.
Thanks, Tyson. I'm down here with Oscar Allen. So thanks for joining me, Oz. How good is it to be live streaming training?
Yeah, it's different. Obviously, it's something that's new, and hopefully everyone at home can see what a normal Monday for us looks like. A lot of the guys are out there training well, and yeah, looking like it's going to be a good session.
Now, you didn't do too much on the track today. What did your Monday morning look like?
I had a light jog, so a lot of us are on different programs at the moment, so I had a light jog, a little bit of a kick, and now I'll go inside and actually do a swim. So still get some cardio in, and although it's a lighter day on track for me, still getting some stuff done inside.
And can you talk us through what the boys are doing just behind me now?
Yeah, so it looks like a couple of the guys are doing some set shot goal kicking, working on their routine. And then across the other sides of the field, a lot of guys working on our ball movement, so working on finding the spare and hitting our kick. So Monday's generally a fundamental day, and we're just working on our skills this morning.
Yeah, awesome. And Friday must have been a pretty big highlight for you for the last couple of months. It was terrific to see you back on the field. What was it like to take the field?
Yeah, it was good fun. It was a bit foreign in the first quarter. It took a while to catch up with the speed of it, but once I was out there, it was good fun, and I think collectively there were some really good signs from the whole side, so I think that was probably the most pleasing part of the night.
And who stood out for you?
I think there's a balance of younger players, so I thought Campbell Chester was pretty good, Jai Cully, Noah Long. I thought Elijah Hewitt came on and showed some glimpses in the fourth, but then some senior players as well doing what they do best. So I thought Gov was great again, Tom Barrass, and some of the mids that we've been missing, so Yowie, Dommy, even Tommy Cole, so it was good to see everyone back out there.
Yeah, plenty of highlights by the sounds of things. And thanks, Simo. And what does the rest of the week look like going into Adelaide on Friday?
Yeah, so with Friday being the game, tomorrow will probably be our biggest session of the week, so pretty much everyone will be training and pushing their cases for selection. Wednesday will be a lighter day, and then Thursday we'll do all the final preparation for the game. So pretty much from here on in, we'll review last Friday and then reset and focus on Adelaide this week.
Terrific. Thanks, Oz. Thanks for your time today, and thanks for joining our live stream.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy.
How good was that, having Oscar Allen join us on this broadcast of our training session on Monday at Mineral Resources Park? And he took us through the week there a little bit, guys. So tomorrow, the main session, that's the bigger hit out, and then Wednesday a little lighter, Thursday virtually a captain's type run, and then Friday ready to go against the Adelaide Crows in the afternoon.
Scott, I was just going to mention with some of the younger blokes we've spoken about as well, it's important too that the group stays really healthy for our waffle side, if we can just allude to that very quickly, because decimated last year, of course, all the way through the club, but the ability for some of our boys who are on the cusp of AFL to be playing waffle, setting a standard that, along with a Jackson Nelson, Alec Waterman, who are going to be permanent players, so to give them some support, which then drives from underneath and keeps the senior players, the 22, 23 they're playing on the weekend, basically on their toes.
Without talking about why, because I think it sounds like excuses, because sometimes there is injuries in footy, sometimes you don't have your full list out there, but the reason why West Coast performance where it was last year was the lack of depth, right? For whatever reason, they didn't have the depth pushing up. That's why the sides that win premierships, they have great depth, and if someone comes out, someone comes in, right? One out, one in. Alistair Clarkson speaks about it a lot, that next soldier up mentality.
Well, guys, we've got another special guest now. Let's head down to Kate Orme, who has the General Manager of Football Operations, Gavin Bell.
Thanks, Tyson. Belly, thanks for joining me. How terrific is it to be out here for our live stream of training?
Yeah, no, it's great. We've got some fans around the place as well, and great to see the players out there getting ready for this week's game.
It's been a huge summer. Can you point me to some of the highlights for you over the pre-season?
Oh, look, I've loved the way that our staff and our players have engaged in what we needed to do to improve. There's been a lot of development over the summer, and so we're really pleased with that. Everyone's brought great energy and enthusiasm to our program, and we feel like we're getting ourselves set to be the side that we want to be again.
Yeah, that's terrific. And you touched on new staff. We've got a few in the development area. Can you talk me through those appointments and what value they're bringing to the club so far?
Yeah, we've been really fortunate with Mark Kilgallen coming in as our strength coach. He's a fantastic coach in that area, and he's added a lot to our program, as is our psychologist, Matt Bergen, who comes from Cricket Australia. He's really helping with our leadership, the cultural side of our program, as well as the performance mindset and the mental health of our players. We've had Steve Truella join from West Perth. Steve will oversee the development of our playing group and of our coaches, so he's a really valuable asset. And we've also added Tom Morrison as a backline coach in the development space. Jacob Brennan's adjusted his role in the development space. He's looking at our programs. And we've just finalised our appointment with our dietitian as well. So Emma Walkie joins us, and we're really looking forward to what Emma can bring our program.
Yeah, some huge ins off the field for us, but we've had some huge ins on the field as well. Can you talk me through the draftees program over the summer? Those who joined us in November, I believe.
Yeah, so of the 7 boys that joined us, we have 2 NGA boys who have come through our programs in Jordan Baker and Tyrell Dewar. Both those guys have shown glimpses of what they can produce for us. They're both working their way through returning to play, but we're really pleased with that, and the aspect of our program being NGA is fantastic. Our first pick in the draft was obviously Ruben. He missed last week's game with a sore foot. We're hoping he'll play this week. He's an exciting prospect, real great athlete, so looking forward to what Rubes brings. Elijah showed glimpses of what he can bring on Friday night. He played a quarter and was pretty dynamic, so we'll keep working with Elijah to become a 4-quarter player. Harry Barnett's returning from injury as well. He was injured before he got here. He's in line for some minutes when AFL 1 comes about, so he'll hopefully play some waffle. And Kobe Bergil and Noah Long have both impressed with the way they've gone about their work. So, yeah, we're really pleased with the way the guys have settled in.
Yeah, that's a terrific update on the youngsters. And touching on Port Adelaide on Friday night, who impressed you from maybe the senior boys who looked the goods?
Yeah, we were just wrapped with the fact that the 4 guys that missed a lot of footy last year, in Oscar, Tommy Cole, who else? Elliot Yeo. They were fantastic for us on their return. Dommy Sheed is the other one. So just great to have them back out and amongst the program. We were really pleased with the result in the end, but we also acknowledge there's a lot of work to do. We think Port are going to be a really strong side, and we were wrapped with the fact that whilst they got on top at times, we were able to guts it out and come away with a solid performance.
And it was a packed house at Mineral Resources Park on Friday, which is, I guess, hopefully what we can bring you here on our live stream. We can bring you into Mineral Resources Park here. And just one other thing, in the season upcoming, we're going to do our interstate trips a bit differently as far as flights go. Can you tell me how we're going to be flying in and out of our destinations to play through the fixtures?
Yeah, at this stage we're flying charter flights, and so the players and staff that travel will be in one section of the plane, and we'd like to open up the other section of the plane to supporters, members, sponsors to join us on the travel over and the travel back. So hopefully that gives the those that are really invested in our footy club an insight into how we travel and what we do.
Yeah, terrific. Yeah, we've got some excellent destinations on the cards this year as far as footy trips are concerned, between Tassie, Brisbane, Melbourne, of course, a number of trips to Melbourne. And if you're interested in any of these trips to fly with the team, you can go to westcoasteagles.com.au for the details, and you'll find them all there, and you can book your flight and come with Gavin Bell and I as we look to take the points interstate. So thanks for joining me, Belly. Our fans and myself have enjoyed all the insights today, and all the best for the week.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks, guys.
There's Kate Orme there with Gavin Bell. Some great insight, and as Kate mentioned at the end there, that charter flight opportunity for fans to go. westcoasteagles.com.au for more information there. Scott, I just want to ask you about Gavin Bell. For some fans, he's going to be a new face, but he's been around since 2008, almost the time when you started at the club.
Yeah.
And he's now General Manager of Football Operations. A lot of experience here at the team. Tell us a little bit about Belly.
What I said about players and the importance of guys that are connectors, I think I see Belly as a real connector. Now he's in a position of leadership now, but he's been at the football club for a long time in numerous roles. He's coached, he's been a part of footy, he's been a real teacher and an educator, and he finds himself as general manager right now, but I think from where he's come from, he knows the players. He's got relationships, and that's why he's there. When that appointment was made, I'm not at the footy club anymore, but really excited. I think he's a perfect person for something like that. Someone to be able to, speak to the coaches, to speak to the players, can talk to the media, can be that in between guy. I really like it, and it's really exciting to see him going well. He's got a lot of respect within the footy club as well, especially from the players.
And Roscoe, obviously, he ran through a few of the other appointments that had happened in the off-season at the football club as well. Steve Truella, amongst the names he mentioned there, a new dietitian that we're going to be getting on board. So I suppose now that the soft cap has started to expand a little bit again, there's some room to be able to get some more personnel in there, which is very important.
Well, they're all pockets of different areas of expertise, Tyson Scully, aren't they, that you need to build. And what Scully said about Bally is he's been across all of those, whether it be welfare, whether it be psych. His teaching background, he's a very good educator, but he's a relationships person, and that's what you need in that role. You need to have the expertise, but you need to be able to transfer that when you're conversations with a one-on-one or a group of 3 or a group of 20 or talking to the whole group. So, there's a real strength there and an underlying a bloke who just is as invested as anyone in this football club.
Guys, you mentioned the missing pole, the players that had missed a lot of time last year, and Eagles media has been following a lot of them in this pre-season. Tom Cole, one of those. Oscar Allen, who we heard earlier, who's had a great pre-season, and Dom Sheed as well. Just how big of a factor is that, Scully, just having that much experience missing game time? Obviously, Campbell Chess, who hasn't played a game yet as well.
Yeah, I'll look at the list, and I think there's definitely 10, but it's probably more like 12 guys that uninjured and everyone on the park. You'll have 12 new players that didn't play a lot of footy last year. So you've got 6 that have never been at the footy club, or Campbell Chess's example where he didn't play in his first year. And then you've got 6 guys that I think we saw a few of those. Oscar Allen, but there's Dom Sheed, there's Elliot Yeo, Nick Nananui, Jeremy McGovern, and
Luke Edwards is another
Tom
one.
Cole.
Tom Cole,
right?
Yep,
so they're the 6 that have either played in a premiership,
Sorry, mate. Yes.
best and fairest, all Australians, and Oscar Allen hasn't done those things, but he's, I would say, the best new upcoming talent that maybe people are sleeping on a little bit, forget what he did in the year that he wasn't injured, which was 2021. He kicked almost 40 goals. I think that's a direct replacement for Josh Kennedy, and that's exciting. The younger guys are just as exciting. Ruben Jimby, Elijah Hewitt, Noah Long, I think that's him on screen. These guys are going to come to the footy club, Jaden Hunt, and give something the club hasn't seen. Campbell Chesser was a really interesting one from the pre-season game. Spent almost all of it on the wing. Now, again, I'm outside the footy club. I only see what I see. I think he's almost a lock to be on the wing for West Coast Eagles round 1, which is pretty special, right?
Yep. His ability to run and carry, and then he's used to the footy, and he's a bit bigger, Scully, than what you think.
Yeah.
And
he's a bit of speed as well.
And speed consistently. He doesn't drop off towards the end of the games. He can maintain that level of pace, which is important. So, good call.
We've got a bit of a full ground drill we're looking at here. You can see at the top of the screen there, the kick that was exactly this kick at the very top here in front of the 50. That was Tim Kelly, Oscar Allen to Tim Kelly right here. Bang, turn your player inside out. Tim Kelly was able to run on and kick a goal, but they're connecting inside 50 here. So this is a forward connection drill that turns into a bit of an exit. So you see the connection at the top of the 50, they connect with a forward inside 50, so a little lead here, a little tick lead, and then they go inside. Shannon Hearn's the guy inside, give the hands, get going, and that's where it turns into a bit of a transition drill. So this happens a fair bit at training. You try and blend parts of the game together, so you're not just doing forward connection and just kicking to the forwards. That forward connection turns into an exit, and it's a bit like an abbreviated circle work where you just keep going over and over and over. It's a repetitive drill. It's to make sure those things that happen in the game, when you get one chance in the game to do it, you hit it. You don't get multiple chances at training. You don't get 20 kicks like you do in a drill. You have one chance. And if you miss it, it's, especially in the back line, like we said, it's a goal. So, that's why this has been happening since you were playing, Roscoe, which wasn't that long ago, but it's been quite friendly there, mate.
Nice bit of humour there, Scully, thank you.
But this has been happening since when you're playing.
And it also means too is that if you are a a forward and you have to go back. You understand what's required.
Which is happening
It's
more.
going to happen.
Yep.
It's going to happen. So that's the release ball out of pressure, bang, and if you want to take it through the middle, that's the kick you can take it to.
Yep.
Just inside 50, bang, spot someone up clear through the middle, because you're not expecting that. So the transition out of defence is it's so important.
Every one of these kicks is under 30 metres. I would say even closer to sort of 25, 20 metres.
Yeah.
So one, it's because of the time of the week, right? You don't want to be kicking 60 metres on a Monday. But two, again, harping on about it a little bit, it's the importance of it. You need to kick these sorts of kicks. If you want to be a good AFL player, you need to be clean when you mark the footy, and you need to be able to hit this kick every time. And if you don't, finding out at training is where you find out. And so when you're not training, you can get in the hanger, here, whatever we call it here at West Coast, and you can hit that kick again. I'll use Lewis Jetta as an example. He was the best kick I ever played with. He would have during the week, we'd do training, he'd do what everyone else did. In the afternoons, he used to stay here and he'd have a bag of balls and he'd kick it, go through the bag of balls 10 times. So he'd have 100 kicks by himself, kicking at walls, hitting targets by himself. He would do it every day. He would kick 1,000 more balls a week than anyone else. And that's why it was a good kick. He has the talent, he has all of that. But repetitive actions, like we're saying here, that's what makes you great. That's good to great, and I think it's sort of an important thing to talk about when you watch these sorts of drills.
And that's so important. You talk about that from a junior footballer's perspective. That amount of work is required, minimum, just to be able to be competent at a lot of skills, isn't it, Roscoe?
And then when they come in here for training, if a coach shows them their tape, a tape will often be, these are the good ones, but hey, there's 4 you missed that you should be getting. And exactly what Scully's saying is, they're the ones you've got to work on, not the ones you're hitting, it's the ones you're missing. Why are you missing?
It's an interesting mindset thing, right, is you might have 100 kicks, you might miss 4, and that's the feedback, the 4 you missed.
Yeah.
Getting yourself in a position where you can take that feedback, you know you're good. Right, you've hit 96 kicks, but the 4 is what you know about. So I always found that challenging, but also a big part of whether you can make it is, can you take that immediate feedback? It's mostly always negative. Like you don't spend a lot of time letting yourself know, hey, you're a very good player.
Yeah,
You've hit 96 kicks. It's like those 4. Can I kick 100? You're always chasing to be better, and I definitely found it a challenge during my career, but. Also, that was what was part of the fun, was like trying to hit 100.
But that's also the maturing of understanding as a player that it's feedback, that they want you to get better. They want you to be as best as you can be. So understand they're not being critical, they're just saying, hey, what you said about Glassy.
Yeah, correct.
Guys, Tom Barras, we saw him walk off a little bit earlier. Nothing wrong there at all, just getting a little bit of a lighter session in today. And he had a fantastic year last year, despite the obstacles of the season. Eagles media followed him around as well throughout this pre-season. A little bit more responsibility from a leadership perspective as well this year. Will stepping into that sort of vice-captain role, and he's a guy you played a lot of football with.
Yeah, I did. And I mean, at stages he probably, that game in particular, that was his best game of the year. He had 30 touches and about 20 marks. Look, he at stages, he kicks his first goal here in his 100th game as well. Might say I called that before the game. I don't bet on footy, but I mean, I should, because that was outstanding, that moment. But he is, he probably benefited from only having Jeremy McGovern in the side 10 times. Jeremy McGovern played 10 games last year. It'll be interesting to see how they work together, because at stages they play a similar game. They like to fly for their marks. I think Tom... they look at Tom as the more negating defender, but they certainly, I think in the past, have had their challenges in making sure that their chemistry is correct. Yeah. That you can't have both of them going. There's no use having both of them fly at balls, and you want one of them going as well. You can't have both holding down.
The flip side to that last year was the fact that we were on the negative of inside 50s and clearances so often when we were losing, and he had to deal with so many more entries, which showed how well he played, and unlucky not to be an All-Australian in the roster.
Made the squad.
Made the squad. But the other fella who's coming through, I think, is an important year for is Harry Edwards, who's that tall enough player, aggressive player that can play either centre half-back, full-back, or take a role on a key tall forward. Whoever it might be, and his maturity I think is really important, because he's aggressive, he's competitive, he just needs to hold his way, but he needs to play a bit more to get an understanding of how they want him to play, if that makes sense.
Well, we've seen that competitiveness in pre-season with Oscar Allen. In fact, they've gone into some scraps throughout some of the training sessions
that's positive,
in a good way.
That's positive, yeah.
You want your young up and coming players to be right on the edge, and that's why you see it boil over sometimes. Mainstream media loves getting a hold of that, and he's fisticuffs down at training, that sort of stuff. But I can tell you right now, that there hasn't ever been an incident in my career. It's never been an incident in my career where it's followed on after training. You have to be on the edge. You have to be on the line of right there. Like Harry Edwards is trying to play round one, or he's trying to guarantee himself a spot. And Oscar Allen at the time is the guy from Stoddy doing that. So if you just roll in there and you're happy-go-lucky and he pushes you around, you're the one who's going to cop it. So that's why it gets to that stage. It's like, I don't want to take a step back. Opposition doesn't want to get a step back, and you're not playing against other people. That's all you've got to work with. So you either beat him or you don't. And if you don't, there's your career. So that's how I used to look at it anyway. I used to get a few of these scraps as well. Oscar Allen was one of them, and it ended the last time we ever did because I hit him hard enough and he realised not to provoke me.
We might come back to that story. Let's go down to Kate Orme, who's down on the boundary line. Kate.
Thanks, Tyson. I'm just down here on the boundary of Oval 1, but spying across to Oval 2, we can see Jack Darling is completing a bit of his rehab. Some really good signs for the key forward. He's up and about doing some stationary kicking on Oval 2. We obviously missed him last week against Port Adelaide, and we'll most likely miss him again this week. But fingers crossed he's ready for round one. He's a really good healer, as Simo's touched on last week. And he's out here doing some stationary kicking, keeping that kicking load in his legs, which is really important as far as rehab goes. And hopefully we see the leading goal kicker return to some big form for 2023. Thanks, Tyson.
Thanks, Kate. Kate across everything this morning, guys. And she was just talking there about Jack Darling out on Oval 2, just doing some stationary kicking. That's a good sign that he's already well and truly out of that moon boot and starting to get some kicking in there and some movement with that foot injury. What do you think, guys?
Ankles are interesting. I don't know if you had much trouble with ankles during your career.
Not a lot, mate, no.
I did. Not a lot of the inward roll that Jack's dealing with here, but myself and, funnily enough, Luke Shuey, the captain, would always joke that there'd be one of us with an ankle issue the entire part of our careers. It was just sort of uncanny how often we used to roll them, and you can start moving on them early, and this sort of stuff as well. He's got it heavily strapped. You can see that. Can you just be stationary and put some pressure? Ankles, you just need to work through. So you can't rush it, but they do turn a corner, and then once the corners turn, you can ramp it up. But he'll be going through a process now. Can he kick with a stationary leg, no sideways movement, straight up and down? If you can do that, you go to the next session, bit of jogging done, then you can change of direction, then you can sprint, and then put it all together. And it's just a process you need to work through. Excitingly for West Coast and for Jack, no surgery. Once you start getting surgery on your ankles, that's it's a big red flag.
And obviously with Josh Kennedy retiring at the end of last season, Jack getting back into the team early is going to be important, isn't it?
Well, he takes that extra really good defender, doesn't he? That if you've got Allen and Darling as your forwards, then their two key defenders from the opposition are taken. That hopefully then releases to a third player, whoever that might be, whether it be a Cripper or whoever we mentioned earlier, that they don't have the same ilk of player on them. So you want to take two of their tools away.
This is an interesting one. Elliot Yeo and Tim Kelly speaking with Adam Simpson. Simo's really good at this. On a Monday, they'll be speaking around setups that happen on the weekend or what they're looking forward to coming up. He's good in a big group setting, great, but he's really good like that. He comes up, he explains what he's thinking. So that's pretty much Simo's role today. Simo, head coach. He's not up there ranting and raving about a session like this. He's trying to get to as many people as possible and speak to them about either what they've done, how they're going, how we'd like them to be going. I found myself having a lot of those conversations towards the back end of my career. It was usually how things I need to do better. But that's all right. That's what you want from your head coach. The worst type of feedback is no feedback at all. You want your feedback. You want to be able to get better. So Simo's really good in this part of the week. I think it's one of his real strengths, to be honest, giving that individual feedback, person to person.
And it might only be a minute, Sky. It might just be a minute or two.
Yeah.
But that's all you're
As a player. You just need the clarity.
I'm settled. I'm doing what he's asking me to do.
Even if it's negative, it's okay. At least I understand what he's thinking. I always used to preach that to him. Just be just be honest. You know, if you hate how I play or you didn't love, you just tell me, and then you can do something about it. It's when you're not clear as a player and you lose that clarity and you don't know where you sit. That's when it's difficult.
And there's an interesting one. There's a couple of players that have moved clubs and have mentioned that from their new club on interview how you're settling in, that it was a conversation I never had with the senior coach.
Well, believe it or not, we've got the senior coach right now. Kate Orme is with Adam Simpson. Kate.
Thanks, Tyson. I'm down here on the boundary with senior coach Adam Simpson. Simo, thanks for joining me today. How terrific is it to live stream training?
It's great, yeah. I don't get a chance to see the players in action. I only do it on Mondays though. But no, it's good chance to interact with the fans.
And winding all the way back to the start of pre-season, we've had a lot of highlights through the draft, Marquee Day leading into Christmas, the Stevie Simpson Cup, of course, a couple of open training sessions with fans. What have been the highlights for you?
Oh, well, there's two things. One, the players' availability and fitness. It was a big off-season for the boys, so a lot of them got to work pretty early in the break, so they've come back in really good nick. And then the second piece is the engagement with the fans. Even stuff like what we're doing today is fantastic. And fan day, obviously the dog race and all those sort of things. But part of what we want to do, climb back up the ladder, but also reconnect with our fans.
Yeah, it's a hugely important thing, as you touched on, connecting with the fans. And going with the numbers on the track, how does that help you as the senior coach?
I don't think we've had a real challenge for spots for probably 2 or 3 years. So, that pressure creates, a bit more energy and more competitive, training sessions. And actually the ability to have 18 on 18 at training, we haven't had that for a few years. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but early January we could actually have match sim. And that just helps us get ready and more resilient for the season.
And we've had some quantity, but we've also had some really high quality return to the track. Can you touch on what it means to have midfielders, particularly Dom Sheed and Elliot Yeo, return to the main training group?
Yeah, look, there's probably 5 guys who missed all of last year, or pretty much all of last year. So having those guys back is fantastic, but we've also got to be careful that they're not going to hit the ground and get straight back into it. There's going to be some ups and downs with those guys. So history tells us that they're more susceptible to different types of injuries. So we've got to look after them a little bit. And you would have noticed that we've been managing Luke Shuey, we've been managing Yeo, Sheed, Cole, Oscar Allen's another one, Campbell Chesser. So I don't think it's just going to be a linear trajectory. I think it's going to be a bit ups and downs with it all. So hopefully, as the season goes, we get most of them on the track.
Yeah, that's terrific. So we had a number of those players you touched on build their minutes last week against Port Adelaide. Apart from those guys, who impressed you against Port?
Oh, it was just good to see the kids as well play. So, and they're not going to be perfect early on, but for us now it's getting the blend of the experienced players back, and I was really happy to see Yeo and Cole and Sheed and Allen come back and play. But, Campbell Chesser come out and playing first game really in a number of years. And some of the other younger players, young Long coming in for his first taste of it, Hewitt coming on the last quarter. And then we've got some guys who have been around for a few years, like Xavier O'Neill and Jai Cully and those guys. So, yeah, the list is changing, but the senior players are important.
Yeah, absolutely. And now this week we take on Adelaide, and we'll have to squeeze the side, obviously, because it's an official practice match. That involves a few headaches for you?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, we still probably haven't got 5 or 6 guys on a full minute. So, yeah, we'll still mix up the numbers a little bit. But, hoping to get Luke Shuey back this week. I'm going to drop Liam Ryan. Jermaine Jones is back this week. Maybe Nick. I think there's one other. So those guys getting a taste of it, and then seeing if we can keep some of the kids in as well.
And we're back here on Friday to face the Crows, and you're looking for another full house of Eagles fans?
Yeah, well, it was actually really good for our younger players to play in front of a crowd. So it must have been 2,000 or 3,000 here, and that just adds to the pressure that they've got to get used to. So the more the merrier. Happy
days. Thanks for joining me, Simo. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tyson. Back to you.
There with Adam Simpson. How good was that? Getting access to the coach on Monday morning training. He talked about some of the younger players, and one of the players he mentioned as well was Jai Cully, who came into the season as a mid-year draft pick. Now, we won't present him as a Guernsey winner at our season launch on Thursday afternoon, but he's effectively, one of the newest players in the squad, and he was able to come in and play a few games last year, and he looks pretty good as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does look good. Look, he was touted as, if he hung around for the draft instead of being picked up in the mid-season, he started as a top 20 pick. And so I think maybe that gets forgotten a little bit, that effectively you get a really high-quality youngster for free in that mid-season draft. West Coast is certainly going to benefit from that. Where does he play? That's probably the question. There's now depth. There is now depth, and where do you slot him in?
Yeah, well, I think he could be one that bobs up as a filler. Half back, half forward, push him into the centre, play as a taller midfielder. He can sneak forward because he's tall, he's very strong in the body.
Looks strong, yeah.
And he's stronger again, and he understands what's required because of those games played last year.
He's top 3 in the 2K time trial, the last couple they've done as well, so he's fit.
He's obsessed with the facility. He's here all day, all night. You see him the first in, kicking balls in the shed, and he's here
Tyson,
late
you're
as well.
obsessed. You're here every day, every night as well.
That's
so
because I'm
it's
a
a
nuffy.
similar
That's
thing.
different.
They've kicked me out.
We saw
Your fob doesn't work anymore, Scully.
Fobless.
Tom Barras just on the boundary there. So we hear that he went in, did some off legs cardio.
Yep.
Oscar Allen talked about having a bit of a swim later as well. So this is the opportunity for players to use, and this is the great thing. And you only got a year of this facility, Scott. Was it a year that you had here?
A couple of years,
and we've got
but I was here for a couple of years.
We see a little bit of action here with Witherden and
They're getting a little bit more match sim here, as you can see. There's a bit more pressure. There's guys in bibs. It's not just running around cones anymore. And you can see here the stoppages with Bailey Williams in the ruck there.
Scott, what do you think of Williams-Jamison combination?
Yeah,
there's some improvement required, and there's some signs of that.
There is, but they're fighting for one spot. I think with Nananui in the side, only one of them plays. So that's what I'm talking about, being on the edge. Those two guys have done a whole pre-season together. They would have been competing against each other almost every session. There's no personal vendettas or anything, but they have been competing. Like, they are competing for a spot on an AFL list in an AFL team. So, what did I take out of it? Bailey Williams looked really good as a forward, I thought. He looked better as a forward than Jamo did, and I probably thought Jamo looked a little bit better in the ruck than Bailey Williams did, just slightly. So they probably both come away from the game with positives, and both come away with something to work on. Bailey Williams, from mine, I used to train on him a lot. He has the potential and the skill set to be a really good player. He hasn't yet done that, but you need time to develop as a key position guy. Cal Jamison, on the other hand, look, he's been really a developing player his first few years at the club, but he's one that really has caught my eye these last couple of months, seeing the boys train a bit. His body shape has changed. I'd be surprised if he hasn't put on 10 kilos. He looks a lot bigger in the torso, in the legs, which is where you put your weight on. Some people see the big biceps, the beach weights, and sitting in front of the mirror doing the bicep curls as Roscoe does. He looks like he's put real weight through his glutes, through his quads, through his torso, and that's where you get your strength. And look, I wouldn't be surprised at all with either of them playing round one. I think it's probably 50-50 at this stage.
Well, it's going to be a pretty fascinating battle throughout the rest of the pre-season. Well, guys, we're going to wrap up the broadcast now with training winding down on this Monday. Thanks very much for your contribution.
I'm exhausted. I think we've done 12K, Scully.
And thanks very much for your company throughout this session as well. Make sure you stay in touch with everything to do with the West Coast Eagles on our website, westcoasteagles.com.au. Download our app and follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram as well. We'll see you next time.